Yo, welcome back, everybody. You're watching or listening to the Business Casual Basketball Podcast. Aaron Washington, come back at you guys for another exciting episode. This is 122. Hard to believe we're already this many episodes in, but very excited to be back on the mic with you guys to discuss four extremely prevalent and extremely interesting topics that we have going on in the NBA today. Joining me on the mic this evening is Andrew Williams, a very awesome, great member of the Unwrapped Sports crew. He's one of the leaders of our group. He kind of leads off a lot of the initiatives we have going on right now with trying to promote content and getting a lot of streams and stuff out there. We had a really great discussion the other night, just talking about a little bit of a couple of the divisions in the NBA and how they're kind of looking going into the season. So, Andrew, I hope you're doing well this evening, man. I'm glad to have you on the podcast and excited to talk some ball with you this evening, man.
Yeah, man, I'm really, really excited. If you're watching this and you didn't catch our panel the other night, it was a wonderful panel. And throughout it, me and Aaron got to talk a lot about the different teams in the Atlantic and Northwest divisions. And we just hit it off. And I'm glad we're able to continue this conversations. I contribute for Unwrapped. I'm an assistant director and pushing out a lot of hoops content. And Aaron's one of my favorite people to talk basketball with. So I'm just excited to be joining with you, man.
Well, it means a lot to me, man. I appreciate that. And likewise, excited to kind of keep the conversation going. So first topic, man, I wanted to start off with this one because I wanted to be sure we had enough time to dive into this. I'm sure there's a lot of thoughts that we both have about this whole situation. It's really just kind of blown up, and it kind of came out of nowhere. Like ending last season, we knew that the Rockets had a tough time of things, and they were looking kind of rough going into the offseason because they had a disappointing run in the bubble. Like they didn't end it on the note that they were expecting to, having Harden and Westbrook in the fold. But I don't think either of us really thought that it would escalate to this point. We're having your two franchise stars just completely want no part of the organization. Daryl Morey out, Mike D'Antoni out. Everything's just kind of like a dumpster fire right now. So basically, I wanted to first talk about how Harden has been conducting himself in the midst of these trade rumors. So specifically his behavior, not showing up to the team on time. He showed up like 2 or 3 days late to workouts before the preseason comes up here. And, he was seen partying, he was in nightclubs and, doing this whole kind of routine, which is fine. But it just seems to me like he's not really zeroed in on this season. He's not committed. And he's almost throwing like a fit in his own type of James Harden way. So what do you think about this whole saga, man? Like, are you turned off as much as I am by his behavior?
100%. And I have so many thoughts on this whole thing from the Rockets to where they ended off last season and to how we got here today and where the Rockets are going forward. But starting off with Harden personally, I feel like that Harden, he has been the Rockets franchise since he was traded there. I mean, right. they have built that franchise around him, and everything that he's wanted in his time in Houston, they've gotten for him. I mean, he wanted Dwight Howard. They got him Dwight Howard. He wanted Dwight Howard gone. He was gone. Same thing with Chris Paul. Same thing with Russell Westbrook. They have catered everything to Harden's needs. I mean, this ain't one of these situations where Giannis asked for somebody and they bungled the Bogdanovich trade like the Bucks did. This is that the Rockets have gotten James Harden everything that they want. And now this man has 2 years left on his deal. This is not even an Anthony Davis situation with the year left asking to go somewhere else. This is a man that has 2 years left on a max contract deal, and now he's trying to force his way out, and he's going about it completely wrong, man. It's a turnoff for me as a fan. James Harden, I'll be honest with you, and I don't think this is too hot of a take. James Harden's one of the top 5 to 10 scorers that's ever played in the NBA. I mean, he is. He's a dominant scorer, and he's a generational player. Now, you may have opinions on whether or not you like his game, but he is a generational scoring machine. And for him to carry himself in this way, I'm very turned off as a fan of the game, of how he's acting. And to be honest with you, if I'm the Rockets, I don't do anything that he wants me to do.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, man. And it kind of reminds me of an article that I read I think it was like yesterday, that Rob Mahoney over at The Ringer had produced. And the name of the article was so fitting. And it was basically James Harden is pushing player empowerment to its limits. And I think we're both in agreement that players should have an amount of influence that other players don't have. Like Harden and Giannis and these guys, they've earned the right to have very strong opinions for their teams. And that's all great. Like, I really am in favor of having these guys having a voice and having influence on some of the team decisions. However, this is a completely different scenario. Like, as you said, Harden is acting out. He's going about it the wrong way. He's imposing his will almost to the point where it's like the team is having a hard time even just operating in a normal fashion because of his just, refusal to show up on time, just, gallivanting off, not with the team. And it's like, it almost makes me feel like like, here's how I saw it broken down on Twitter. It's like Westbrook, we get on him for his flaws on the court, but off the court and like as a teammate, like he's fantastic. Like no one has a problem with that. Harden is the opposite. It's like as a player, it's like, wow, he's all-world player, legendary, one of the all-time greats that we've seen play this game. But off the court, like how good is he as a teammate? That's all up in the air. And the other part of it is like, you explained it perfectly. The Rockets have catered to him his whole career. It's like Chris Paul, we got you. Westbrook, we got you. Trade Clint Capella, like put that roster around him. That's like a 5-out small ball lineup. Everything that he wanted has come to fruition, except this one time where it's like I want to be shipped off away from this team, and now he's throwing a fit because it's not happening. Like it's almost like he's been spoiled over his whole tenure, like 8 years he's been with the team.
I'll add something too. I saw some the other day, and you know how things go, Aaron. Like when this stuff starts happening, these players push the narratives out. That their agents or through whoever, they try to get different narratives out. And obviously James Harden now, and even teams do this as well. But I've seen some stuff in the media where James Harden's, he's having some of his people push this narrative. And one of the narratives that I seen pushed was that the Rockets are that the Rockets culture is horrible and the Rockets are the Knicks of the South. Like somebody in James Harden's circle said that. And I got two problems with that. First of all, the Rockets culture is James Harden. Like he is the one that has dictated that culture. I mean, you have been at the center of that for the past 8 years. Everything, it's been your world, man. The Houston Rockets have revolved around you. The second problem I have with that, we can sit here and laugh about how terrible the Knicks are. They've been terrible. Their franchise has been a disaster for the past 10 years. But guess what? The Rockets put a championship contender around James Harden. And if it wasn't for a Chris Paul injury in 2018, they might win the finals. Like if it wasn't for a Chris Paul injury, that team may win the finals. And that's the way the ball bounces sometimes is injuries happen and it takes people out of their game. But here's the thing. I saw James Harden's mom come out the other day and say, James just wants to win a ring. James, okay, listen, here's the deal. If you look at the past best players on a championship team, so you look at LeBron and Anthony Davis, look at Kawhi Leonard before that, Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, those years in Golden State going back, the main players always are dedicated to being good teammates, to doing the best that they can for the organization, to working. And I know there's drama and stuff always, but sure. James Harden is the one guy that says, I want a ring, but then his off the court demeanor and his off the court actions tell me that he's not as serious about a ring as these other people are. And I'm not trying to criticize his lifestyle. He's a grown man and do what he wants to. It's a different thing. Right. But a championship in the NBA is the highest rung on the ladder. And there's a certain dedication that you have to get that. And I'm looking at this situation. I'm saying, yeah, James Harden don't have that.
No, I don't see it either. And it's really a shame because it's like, his game is so special and it's so dynamic that it should cater to winning a championship. And he's gotten on the doorstep of the finals a couple of times, and he's had his failings. I mean, we haven't even hit that part of it. Like he's really been criticized for coming up short in the playoffs on several occasions. And that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of hesitant of like Miami really going out and getting this guy. And, I'll say it here first, like, even though I have my reservations about it, I think they should pull the trigger because we know how great of a player he is. And, talent wins out over everything in the NBA. So even though he's not the perfect fit as far as the culture or the play style, I think they should go ahead and do it. But that begs the question, what does Miami have to offer as far as like a trade package? So I've seen some different ideas thrown around on Twitter, and I think it would come down to probably like Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero. You got to throw in some salary fillers, so maybe like Iguodala, Olynyk, and then some picks. So I have heard that if OKC unprotects that 2023 pick that Miami owes OKC, then Miami is free to trade 25 and 27 because there's a certain rule in the NBA. You can't trade back-to-back picks. So it would come down to 25 and 27 first-round picks for Harden, which I think is pretty fair. It's just the Heat fan side of me, man, is just like letting go with Tyler would definitely hurt, man. Like he's been such a revelation. He's a great player. But, I mean, I would do it if I was in the front office of the Heat. I would just have certain concerns because of how Harden is conducting himself. And it's almost like a complete opposite of what Miami stands for, not just with his antics, but how he plays. Like he's a ball stopper. He is all about just taking up a bunch of the shot clock, step back threes. And the Heat play style last year, it was so special and fun to watch. Like everybody was involved. Everybody was moving, the ball movement, the shooting was special, man. So that would be lost with Harden. So even though they had the pieces to offer and he would be a definite upgrade for that team and they would challenge for a championship, there would be some concerns, definitely, I think, on the part of the Heat.
I was thinking about that a lot because I know that the betting odds came out today and the Miami Heat were the favorite. Now the favorite to land James Harden. And I know that may come as a shock to some people, but that's kind of been muttered about for a couple of days that maybe the Miami Heat might go after that because, the whole Giannis situation is kind of up in the air of whether or not he's going to sign that extension. And I know that the Heat are interested in bringing in another guy. And I got to really thinking about now, I'm a Kentucky guy. So like I love Tyler Hero. I think he's going to be great. And I think that him going to Miami was really the perfect scenario for him because, Tyler's a hard worker, but in Miami, he wasn't thrown to the wolves. I mean, he has a good structure around him, a good system to bring him up at. It's worked with Bam, and it's obviously working with Tyler. But I was thinking about James Harden on the Heat, and I have a couple of thoughts on that. And first of all, I'm a LeBron guy. LeBron's my favorite player. I don't mince words when it comes to that. And I don't think that LeBron and James Harden are alike in almost any sense of the fashion, off the court or on the court.
Agreed.
But when LeBron went to Miami, LeBron, I don't know if LeBron really knew how to win. And, LeBron, and I remember that time because, I've been with LeBron, I've been a LeBron guy since his high school days. And I watched the struggling years in Cleveland. And then I watched when LeBron went to Miami, even that first year, LeBron didn't know how to win. Mm-hmm. And the Heat culture, Pat Riley, being around that culture, Eric Spoelstra, being with guys like D Wade and Chris Bosh and just veteran players, they showed him how to win. Now, because LeBron is after the Miami era, and a lot of people don't think about Miami LeBron because it's been a while ago and he's climbed different mountains. Sure. But the reason that LeBron is who he is now is because of those Miami days and because they taught him how to win. And so if I'm looking at James Harden and I'm Pat Riley, I'm saying, you know what? LeBron James wasn't like that off the court, but maybe if we bring James Harden in, we can get that Heat culture that's so talked about. We can put him in that structure, put him in that organization, and we might be able to teach him how to win. Because there's one thing I know, Pat Riley knows how to win, and Eric Spoelstra knows how to win. So like if I'm the Heat, I know you're a Heat guy, you like the Heat. If I'm the Heat and I love Tyler Hero, if that deal's on the table, I have to pull the trigger because I'm looking at James Harden. I'm looking at Jimmy Butler. And listen, I know there's one person that ain't taking no crap, and it's Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy, listen, either James Harden will sink or swim in Miami. Either Jimmy Butler will kill him after about a couple of months, or they'll rise together and probably be the favorites in the East.
Hey, well said, man. I saw this on Twitter just earlier today. Somebody said this, and I really agreed with it. It's not about what James Harden can do for the Heat. It's about what the Heat can do for James Harden.
Absolutely.
I saw that. I retweeted it. And I'm like, that's exactly right. Because it's almost like a sense of desperation can really just transform the way you view basketball and anything in life, really. So LeBron was at the point of his career where it was like a crossroads. Like he knew if he wanted to go to the next level, Cleveland wasn't the place for him. Got to Miami. Of course, it wasn't. It was technically a trade because it was a sign and trade. But basically he was a free agent, so we can, look at it as like a free agent signing. But like the concept is the same. Like he didn't know how to win. He had been all about, he'd had the MVPs, Harden has his MVPs. Like LeBron had been deep in the playoffs, not quite to the final. Well, he'd actually been to the finals as well, which is actually a little bit farther than what Harden has done so far. But it's like they were the same point. So like LeBron is looking for a little bit more success. Harden's looking for that. So like maybe at this point of his career, even though he's older than LeBron was, he's come to a point and he's saying like, okay, I can't do this the way I've been trying to do it for 8 years in Houston. Like I need something different. I need to change my approach. And maybe Miami is the one team in the league that can force him to take a different approach on playing basketball and just the way he conducts himself in the whole nine.
And we know as NBA fans that these dudes think about legacy. Like that's one of the things that drive these guys is is their place on the pyramid when their career's over. Where are they at?
Absolutely.
And if James Harden's career is over today, then in 20 years, I don't think that history is going to remember him fondly. We'll say, man, you may look at him like I'm just don't like an Iceman George Gervin, a guy that could score a lot of points, but never, maybe never got to that final stage and won an NBA championship. So if I'm James Harden, it's not the Nets that I want to go to, because if he goes the Nets, then I mean, everybody's going to hate on that. Like everybody's going to say, yeah, of course you won with that team like that. They're going to look at that ring the same way that a lot of people look at Kevin Durant's Golden State run. But if James Harden goes to the Heat and wins a title, then his legacy can be looked at a completely different aspect. And then when his career's over, we can look at him. If he were to win a title or two in Miami, I honestly believe that James Harden could finish as one of the top 20, top 15 greatest players of all time. But but he has to start realizing what he's doing right now to destroy his legacy and how his legacy can be repaired.
Exactly. Like a lot of us look upon James Harden negatively because of his reputation has been damaged quite a bit over the past 2 weeks, but he's not too far gone. Like if he goes to Miami, he can get a championship. He can show how dedicated he is to winning. Like imagine if he is in the gym at 3 a.m. with Jimmy Butler, in between games. Like that would go a long way towards proving people wrong about him, me included. Like I see Harden as one of these guys. He just kind of like strolls into camp. He's just going through the motions or whatever. But if he can hit that next level, like let's say his body fat percentage is lower than it's ever been in his career, and muscle watch is on, and he feels better than he's ever been, like that will transform everything for him, and he will definitely go places. Like especially if they can keep a couple of their young guys like KZ Okpala, which I'm still super high on him. I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten that he's one of those young wings coming up. Precious Achiuwa, they got in the draft. Like keep a couple of those guys along with Harden. Maybe Duncan Robinson, maybe they could find a way to retain him. Like there is still a lot left for the Heat, even outside of Harden.
I mean, and if you're able to keep a team, honest to goodness, if you think about this, if you're able to keep a team, you add James Harden and you're able to keep Jimmy Butler, Bam, Duncan Robinson, KZ Okpala, like those guys, you're looking and saying, I mean, dude, I obviously I rode with the Lakers last year and because LeBron's my guy, but I'm sitting here watching a replay. Like I've been watching replay of the finals and stuff. Dude, the Heat they were such a well-structured team, such a well-coached team last year. You add James Harden into that. You bring back Jimmy Butler. You bring back Bam Adebayo. And honest to goodness, I'm not just saying this. I'm on your show. I know you're a Heat guy, but I mean, they would automatically become my favorites in the East, and it wouldn't necessarily be close.
Yeah, that's very fair. I mean, you just look at like everything they offer. I mean, they were already there. So it's not like they're operating in a place where Milwaukee or Philadelphia is, where they still have some things to prove. Like Miami has proven, they just need one more piece. Yeah. They're at the doorstep. They're knocking at the doorstep. So specifically about the Heat, I want to transition this conversation a little bit to where Miami finds themselves right now, and specifically their place in the East. So if we're talking about it right now, where are they at compared to the other teams in the conference before we get to a point of James Harden being in the mix? Let's say right now, let's say that trade does not happen. I would say that the Heat find themselves in a place where maybe they're right below Milwaukee, Brooklyn. After that, I would say like they're in the mix. Like, sure, they don't have all the top end talent that those two teams have, but on the other hand, they have the coaching, they have the chemistry, they have the system. It's proven to be effective. They have everything they need to make another run to, I would think, at least the conference finals. So that's kind of how I view Miami in comparison to those other teams. They've just proven themselves to be a potent team based off last season's results. Even if they don't make any major shakeups, just the fact that guys like Bam and Tyler Hero and Duncan, like they're still on the rise. So if they had those performances in the playoffs at like age 20, 2021 to like 23, like imagine where they can be with another season of grooming and growth and just finding themselves as players. It's going to be incredible either way.
I read that the other day where somebody there was league officials saying that the Heat run was a fluke, and I thought, man, whoever said that didn't watch the playoffs.
No,
they just didn't, because I mean, I'm sitting here and I watched. I mean, because when basketball came back, we were all obsessing like every game, watching as much as we can.
No doubt.
I watched every Heat game, and they were a lot of fun. They weren't my team, but they were really fun to watch. And when I looked, and you got to look at the Eastern Conference this year, and you say, all right, who are the teams? Okay, so obviously you're going to pop Milwaukee up there. Well, who's the one team that knows how to completely stop Milwaukee? Who's the one team that can build a wall against Giannis and guard him? Well, that's Miami. Okay, well, who's your second team? Well, okay, maybe it's Brooklyn. Well, and we talked about this the other night. If you think that how Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are going to play together and get along this year, you don't have any clue. Like, we have that may be great, or we may be in a couple months talking about this was a disaster.
Yeah.
And so you're taking so then your other team is maybe Boston. All right, what did Boston add? Well, they added Tristan Thompson, that's fine, and they drafted Aaron Naismith, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But like, you're looking at a Miami team, like you said, a year older, a year together, and I honestly believe that you're going to see these teams that had a deep run in the bubble, that had a really good, because remember, we're only like 70 days since the bubble ended. It's not been that long.
Really,
so you're kind of carrying your chemistry over from the bubble. And if there's one thing that I know is that the Miami Heat, I mean, didn't maybe have the high-end talent, but as a unit together, they were so special, and I think they automatically carry that chemistry over. I think that you get new confidence from Bam and Tyler and Duncan now that they've been in that situation. And I'm not saying that they're going to finish the end of the year with the best record in the East.
Right.
But when the playoffs come along, I don't know why they wouldn't be a favorite to make it to the conference finals again.
Yeah, they can compete with anybody, like we saw against the Lakers. I mean, taking two games off that team is no small feat.
Right.
And I think one of the reasons why people are so hasty to deem that run a fluke is they're not used to a team not having that kind of talent making a run like that. So they get to the finals, they look at the roster itself, and they say, like, well, that has to be a product of the bubble. There's no way you can take a team with Jimmy Butler and a bunch of like young players and role players and compete against the Lakers with LeBron and AD. Like, there's just no way. So it has to be some kind of once in a lifetime blip on the radar where all the stars align for them. And like, sure, some things probably fell in their favor. Like, I'm sure the matchups were in their favor, but that's an every year thing. That's not a bubble thing. It's a matchups are a huge part of the playoffs. And, looking at the emergence of some of these guys, like, they just came around at the right time. Like, Dragic is, he's played like this before. Like, it's probably been a couple years, but Dragic has been an all-star. And Bam, that's just a natural progression that comes with experience. So he got more time as a focal point in the offense. And something else we don't really talk about, the season had a break. Like, the season had like a 3-4 month break where players were able to continue to work on their game. So you saw that the Heat stayed diligent. They stayed working. They got better from where they were earlier in the season, which was already in a good place. And then it just carried them to a place where they can compete with some of the great teams in the East because, like you said, like, the pieces fit together so well and they continue to just develop and get better. So I see that continuing for next season. Like,
well, and a couple of things too. First of all, Jimmy Butler has been known throughout his career as somebody that brings extreme intensity, and he sets a standard that there have been other players that have had a hard time following. When he was in Minnesota, obviously Karl Towns and Andrew Wiggins couldn't meet that standard. There was problems. Mm-hmm. When he was in Philadelphia, there were rumored problems with Ben Simmons, and he couldn't meet that. But now Jimmy Butler has met this is a perfect match. You have an intense player with an intense franchise. That culture matches up perfect. The NBA is a star league, and Jimmy Butler may not be the star on the level of LeBron and Kawhi and Kevin Durant and those guys, but sometimes the sum of the parts on the team is greater than the one individual star. And so, and you were saying, yeah, they have good matchups and stuff. Yeah, that's fine. But the Heat also had some bad breaks in the finals. Like I said, I'm a Lakers guy, but not having Goran Dragic for a lot of the finals, Bam having a shoulder injury for a lot of the finals, and even in the conference finals, having to deal with those types of injuries. So the Heat had to face adversity just like every other team pretty much had to face adversity, but yet they overcame it. And it was obvious. If you watch the finals back, it is obvious. The Lakers have more top-end talent. But listen, the Heat scrapped and clawed and fought and gave the Lakers everything that they wanted. And I'm watching Game 6 again. I was sitting here watching it earlier. I'm watching Game 6. The Lakers obviously won that by a lot. The reason they did was because the Heat were worn down. That they had just given so much for that run. But I'm going to tell you something. If the Heat would have won Game 6, I would have been terrified as a Lakers fan, because I really believe that if the Heat win Game 6, they probably win Game 7.
Anything can happen.
And so, like, I just feel like that people that look at the Heat and say, well, they just got lucky as a one-year run. Listen, they had challenges. They faced adversity. They weren't just filled with luck. That team was a good sum of its parts altogether. And it kind of takes it back to old school basketball of how a team is constructed well, how culture can bring a team up, and how a good organization can make a lot of good people without maybe a true superstar help them reach that higher level.
Exactly. That's the beauty of Heat basketball, and that's something we're going to have to look at potentially changing if this trade does come to fruition. So I did want to address that, just looking at where they came from and how people are thinking about this team going into next season. And I think people are still sleeping on the Heat. They still think that, it's just going to one year run, and, they're kind of limited with their ceiling. But I mean, there's definitely places that Miami can go, whether or not this trade manifests. Like, Giannis still hasn't signed that contract, which is actually, if I were a Bucks fan right now, I would be terrified. Like, this man has one of the most enormous contract extensions on the table in history in the league right now, and it's just sitting there. Like, he goes to the media yesterday and he's like, I'm not worried about the extension. I'm just focused on myself. I'm focusing on the season. Like, oh boy, I mean, that has a lot to do with your team, and maybe this season it doesn't have the biggest impact, but I mean, it's a huge deal. So I'd be terrified.
And think about this, Aaron. Like, it wasn't long ago that Giannis was saying in the media, I want to be here. I mean, I want to be in Milwaukee. I want to be here for my career. And he was saying that stuff, and all the Bucks fans on Twitter, yeah, Giannis is different. Giannis wants to be here forever. But you've seen over the past month that tune is changing. He is no longer saying those things.
Slowly but surely, you see the transition. Like
he said, I don't care if I'm the second guy or the third guy, like whatever. I just want to win the championship. And I agree with you. If I'm a Bucks fan, and I know Giannis came out there today, this is not a championship or bust. If I'm a Bucks fan, you better pray to God you win a championship this year, because if you don't, like, Giannis is gone.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he hasn't signed, then there's definitely some attractive teams. Like, I mean, Miami looks great. Toronto looks great. There's some destinations. So, I mean, these guys, these stars now, they have this idea in their mind. It's like the grass is greener on the other side. Like, there's more opportunity on that team. There's better management on that team. There's always something better. There's always a better team out there, man. Like, you can never be too satisfied, whether you're a player or you're a fan. There's always a better situation out there.
Let me ask you one more thing real quick before we transition, moving back, because I saw something just before I came on. Another trade that interested me, and just one more, just kind of a closing into the James Harden talk. And I'm going to ask you, I saw that, okay, what if the Nuggets, if you're the Nuggets, would you offer Jamal Murray and pieces if it could get you James Harden?
Ooh, man, I had not thought of that. I
heard that. And I was wondering what you thought about that.
I would be kind of hesitant to do that now. Like, after that bubble run, I'm hesitant. Like, if you had asked me that 6 months ago, you could have him. Like, just take that out. Like, he's so inconsistent. Like, the man is up and down. Like, he'll go from scoring 40 to 10. I'm like, that's fine. That's fine with me. Take him, take Gary Harris. Like, I ain't worried about that.
Yeah.
Now, as he is on the cusp of possibly all NBA type talent, it concerns me.
Yeah.
His fit with Jokic is seamless. Like those two guys work together so well.
Yeah.
Harden, as much as he dominates the ball, that takes away from Jokic. That takes away from what Jokic likes to do. It's a unique relationship where you have a center that is a great playmaker. We don't see that a lot. He's almost like basically a point center.
Yeah.
Because now Murray operates in a way where he's off ball a lot.
Yeah.
He's not a straight point guard. His playmaking statistics and numbers do not reflect that. He's a scorer at heart, and Jokic allows him to work in that role where I think he's at his best. So I mean, I would be seriously hesitant if I'm the Nuggets, man. Like I thought
that was interesting. I thought that was an interesting. I think there's some teams out there that kick the tires on hard. And if I'm the Rockets, if I'm the Rockets, I'm just trading to whoever gives me the best package. Like I don't care. Yeah, like I don't care about your demands, my man. Like if I want to trade you to Sacramento, I'm gonna trade you to Sacramento. Like I don't care.
For sure.
Yeah.
He has no leverage, and I think that's kind of like the whole point of this. Like 2 years left. I'm just scared to what this means for the league in the future. It was a year with Anthony Davis. It's 2 years. It's 3 years.
Yeah.
Rookie deal. I hope this doesn't progress any farther than we've seen already.
Me too.
So as we're talking about these players, these star players, and we've mentioned the bubble, and it really wasn't that long ago. You mentioned it was 70-ish days since the bubble. That carries into this season an element of just conservative playing time. The games for these guys like LeBron and Jimmy Butler. It's really going to be interesting to see how much these guys play. It's already been reported that LeBron and AD will not be available for the preseason matchup coming up tomorrow. So we need to talk about the rest protocols that the league is introduced for this season. So it was reported yesterday. I saw this from Chris Haynes. He said that the NBA is implementing a new resting policy for next season. So teams are prohibited from resting healthy players for any high-profile, nationally televised game, and the violation could amount up to $100,000. So I got flashbacks to Greg Popovich. He was playing on NBA TNT in Miami a few years back. He rested all of his guys. He got fined, and I think it was $100K if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So I'm getting kind of flashbacks from that. But my initial thought, and a lot of people on Twitter had the same questions. There's two of them. So first of all, what defines a high-profile game? Like you say high profile, but like what does that mean? Is it just ESPN? Is it just TNT? Does that include NBA TV? Because NBA TV is technically nationally televised, which is one of the criteria that they stated in that announcement. But it's not high-profile games don't usually hit NBA TV. We're not usually seeing the Bucks and the Clippers on NBA TV. It's usually like the Hawks and the Bulls or something of that to that effect. So that's the first question. The second question is, how do you determine if a team is legitimately seeing a guy because he's hurt or they're finessing it? Like when I say finesse, I mean, okay, this guy has a sore ankle. Is he hurt? Maybe. I mean, he could definitely play. He won't be 100%, but he's definitely available and he can play. So like, where do you draw that line? And that's why you guys are seeing on the screen right here, if you're watching live, gray areas. There's two huge gray areas that we have to deal with when we're talking about this policy. So, I mean, like for that first question, like to you, Andrew, like what defines a high profile matchup? Like, does it depend on the teams, the network? Like, how does that all work together?
For me, I mean, if I'm thinking about this from the NBA's perspective, we know that sports across the board. I mean, I hated that narrative like, well, the NBA is just social justice, so that's why they're losing. That's nonsense. Every single sport the past year in this pandemic had lower viewership because of the situation that we were in. And that's just that those are facts. Mm-hmm. And so now the NBA is trying to rebound. The NBA is trying to have a year where they go back to those high TV ratings, that massive amount of revenue that they were generating the year before. Mm-hmm. So I think their thought process is, okay, every game that is a nationally televised game, you cannot rest your players for nonsensical reasons. We need the big guys there. We need LeBron, Kawhi, KD, Luka. Like, we need those guys in those games. If you're on a back-to-back and the Lakers are in Charlotte and, it's going to be on Spectrum in Los Angeles, go ahead. That's fine. You can start Caruso and KCP and all of them.
Yeah.
But, like, to me, I could be wrong, but I would think any game that's on TNT, any game that's on ESPN is a game that that the starters are going to have to play. But I think that you're right. I think, first of all, I think this sets a really bad precedent in the sense of like it's a really slippery slope as to, okay, how much are we going to let guys sit out? And you know, and we saw that. Like I would say when you think of load management, who's the first person you think of? Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard. And I'm glad that we agreed on that. But I think that he took that to some like extreme amount. And I think if the NBA is not careful, what you're basically telling your fans is that the regular season doesn't matter. And there's no reason to watch. There's no reason to get league pass. There's no reason to watch these games because the only thing that matters are the playoff games. And I love the playoffs. I think the playoffs is great. But you know this. There's already a group of fans that say, I don't watch it until the playoffs.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't watch it until the playoffs. And if you want to win the normal fan back, you got to have your star players playing on a night-to-night basis. It can't just be, well, you know, we're doing 72 games this year. Our best players may play 52, or our best players may play 60. That's not enough. You have to win the average fan back by showing your best players and putting the best product out on the floor every night.
Exactly, man. And in the NBA is like that's. I'm glad you brought that up. It's because of our unique circumstances that I think they brought this in at this time. The league is already they've done this in the past. They've really cracked down on teams resting players, and you got to think of it from two sides. Like there's the league side where it's like play your guys so we get more viewership, we get more money for our league, and then the other side of it is from the fans' perspective. So from our perspective, we want to see these guys play because it's just a better basketball product overall if these guys are present. And I've said this for 3 years, man. Like I've been hammering this home. Rest is okay. I'm okay with rest.
Yeah.
When you rest your players is so important. Yeah. Like you gave that perfect example of like the Lakers who are playing in Charlotte. And I'll give you a better example. Charlotte is playing in LA.
Yeah.
So because it's like you have the home fans and then they can come back for multiple times later on if LeBron isn't playing. It's like, all right, I'll come back to see them play the Kings next week. Right. So it's not a huge deal. But like the away games are a problem too, because it's like, what if a fan is coming to that game and this is their one opportunity in the season to see LeBron play? So that's where that can also become a problem. But I think we're on the same page here. It's basically like you have to rest your players in a time that's appropriate. Nationally televised, Lakers, Clippers, TNT on Thursday is not appropriate. That's not where we want to see that. And it's really a shame that the circumstances have dictated that the NBA goes as hard as they are on this point because they're trying to recoup lost revenue. But I mean, it really is better for both sides if they don't kind of go crazy with resting their players. But that brings into account the next topic we're trying to address. It's like, who is hurt? Like, if you say a guy has like a sore toe, like, I mean, yeah, I believe you, but like, how bad of an injury is that? Like, there's almost like a gray area when it comes to injuries. Like, teams have really learned how to finesse the injury report. General soreness. Do you remember that? Like, there's general soreness.
Go back to the playoffs. I mean, and every single I remember every injury report from the first round on, and I remember this because I would keep up on Twitter with it. LeBron James and Anthony Davis were on the injury report every single day from the first round on. LeBron said groin, and Anthony Davis said ankle, and it said that every single day. They were always questionable or probable. And the thing about it is, it was like, okay, I mean, we all know, I mean, they're playing. Like we knew that they were playing.
Yeah.
But these guys are NBA players. It's obvious that they exert their bodies every single day. And listen, man, I'm 30 years old. If I get out and do too much activity, like I'm gonna be down for 3 days. So I don't even know like
I'm 3 years younger, man. I already feel it. Like
I got a bad back. If I sleep wrong, like I'm out for a couple of days. So I don't understand how these NBA dudes do it. But what becomes a bad thing is that, like you said, general soreness or I got a foot injury and it's something ridiculous,
like ambiguous.
And I think that you're leaving. Like you said, a lot of ambiguity as to what the injuries are. And I get if somebody's got like a sprained hamstring or something, that's obvious. You got to have that or high ankle sprain. But
Mhm.
like, if it's like, well, I woke up and my knee was kind of aching, and I'm not going to play. I'm not playing against the Pistons tonight. Like,
Yeah,
I think it sets a bad precedent for teams around the league, and I think it sets a
absolutely.
bad precedent for the fans as well.
Absolutely, man. And I get it that we're probably not going to see 72 games from a lot of these stars. Like Jimmy Butler is a prime example. LeBron, like they're not going
Yeah.
to play 72 games. Like these guys just came off a long playoff run. So like I understand that you have to be accommodating to these guys that are definitely have a little bit more wear and tear on their bodies from, a run that we just finished off,
I want to throw in one more thing though. I have more sympathy for dudes that were in a deep run. Here's what I don't want, and I will get mad at this, and I'm obviously biased, but I don't want to hear Kawhi Leonard and Paul George coming out within the first week and saying, load management or rest
Yeah,
needed. I'm sitting there
yeah,
thinking, I mean, y'all got beat out in the second round. Like, you're good. But,
yeah.
if Jimmy Butler wants to take some nights off, dude, he was a warrior throughout that whole playoff series. Yeah, I don't want to hear, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard saying, I need some rest tonight. You've had over 100 some days to rest. You should be good by now.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, my thoughts exactly, man. We really have to be. But the good thing is that's only a select group of players. Like a lot of people didn't play in the bubble, or they didn't make the playoffs, or something like that. So it's like they've had actual normal offseason. They've had 3+ months of rest, so they should be good to go. So hopefully, when it comes to those guys like Trae Young and Curry, hopefully they'll play like 60+ games because they got all that time to rest. That's at least I'm hoping for that.
Me too.
So one last segment, man. Let's hit up these City Edition jerseys. I know this is a little bit late. The jerseys have been up for, I think, a couple weeks now. We've had a general idea of what every team looks like. But I think we're doing the same thing here, man. We're taking a look at these jerseys on Twitter or something, getting a picture of them to just see what we think about our top 5 and our bottom 5. So let's start with the bottom 5, man. For you, I want to know which jerseys you see on this list and you say to yourself, what in God's name was that team thinking about this design? Like, here's the way I look at it. Like, some people say that the jersey is good if it's like, oh, I love the idea, or I love the concept about that thing in the city. That's not what constitutes a good jersey for me. Like, if it looks like garbage, it's garbage. Like, I don't care like what your idea was. Like, if the execution wasn't there. So that being said, like, what are a few jerseys for you, man, that you're not feeling and you think the team needs to go back to the drawing board and just start that issue over?
Do you want to go like one at a time, or do you want to just give me my 5?
Oh, give them all. Give me them all, man.
Okay, I'll start off with the first ones that I pretty much hate. I would say probably the Brooklyn Nets jerseys.
Right there with you.
I think those look terrible. I think that they look like some type of project that you would see in like an elementary school or
like is it like an art project?
Yeah,
Like,
I don't like those. I think they're hideous. Didn't like them at all. I would say the second one for me is, I'm sorry, man, I don't like the Boston Celtics. Like I think that those are pretty ugly. They're pretty generic. I don't like the concept. I'm just kind of going down here.
some people said they look like practice jerseys or G League jerseys or something like that. And it's like, I like the concept. I actually do like the concept. They're about the banners. I'm like, again, it's like the idea is good, but the execution, I'm just like, it's just so bland. I'm with you.
The third one I don't like is the New Orleans Pelicans jerseys.
Yeah.
I get the whole like New Orleans, Louisiana thing, like, but
Is that an all-star jersey?
yeah, it looks, I hate it. I don't like it. I would say the fourth one for me, and then you kind of get to some of the bland ones that I don't really care about. But maybe the fourth one for me would probably be the Denver Nuggets going red, just kind of like with their base colors and going red. I think that one's just, I don't know, it's just not really my cup of tea. It's kind of weird.
Sure.
And then fifth one, I'll say the Cleveland Cavaliers jerseys. I think those are ugly.
I'm with you, man. Like, I think my bottom 5 list is I had all the same, except I think Denver was the one I didn't have on mine. Like, Denver was like a tier higher for me.
Yeah.
The other 4, I'm just not a fan. Like the Cleveland font, like I get the idea. It just looks like, I don't know. It's almost like one of those like 90s like TV sitcoms where you see like that font for like Martin or something. That
is it. That's perfect. It's Martin font. That's it. That's perfect.
Like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or something like that. I'm just like, I mean, that's cool and everything, but like on the jersey, I guess it just doesn't come out the way I envisioned it. So I think the other jersey, so I had 4 of the 5 that you had. The one I had that I don't think you listed was Washington, because it's like, I feel like they've had the same City Edition jerseys every single year. This is the 4th year that we've done City Edition jerseys. Like, I don't think they've changed it hardly at all. It's like, well, slap a different color on the front and call it a day. I'm like, that's just not working for me, man. So I'm not feeling that. But I'm curious to see what we're thinking about the best ones. So I'm thinking about what I have for my best jerseys, and I think Miami is universally loved every year. Miami is a jersey that people say like they just love because the Vice theme is just, I think it's undefeated personally. Awesome. I also have the Suns here. I think the Suns is another jersey. I think people are just saying like the Valley is a great idea, and you have the landscape of almost like those valleys and rock sculptures you'll see in Arizona. So that's a cool idea. The Hornets, I just think the colors on that jersey just flow so well, like the teal and the black and a little bit of gold just hitting the sides and going down the middle, I think looks really good. And then the Bulls and the Spurs I have as my last 2. The Bulls with that old Chicago, like the people that know about Chicago, like there's this old Chicago theme. I think they executed that like perfectly. I think it's a great idea. And then with San Antonio, it's like, hey, we're bringing back the 90s, man. We're going back to the Fiesta theme and, those 3 colors going down the court. So I think that was a great execution on their end. But I'm curious to see what you think about that.
My number 1 was easily the Suns. I love the Suns jerseys just like you. I thought they were awesome. If you've seen the pictures coming out of training camp, I know I saw a picture with CP3, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton with them on, and they just look really good. They popped. The colors were really cool, and I really like seeing those. The number 2 for me was the Spurs. I love the old school, man. Like anything that's retro for me is really cool, and I really like those jerseys. The third one was the Heat. I'm with you. I think the Vice theme is always awesome. And I don't know, man. There's nothing that goes more perfectly together than those Vice jerseys and Miami. It's just like it's perfect. Man. I mean, I love it. I think it's great. The 4th one, I agree with you. I really like the Bulls jerseys. I think they're underrated. You have that old like Chicago look, like you just kind of get the feel of the city. You like it makes you feel like the city.
It makes sense immediately. Like some of those other jerseys, like I don't understand. Like Milwaukee's, for instance, like the blue is like I have no idea what that means.
Yeah,
but the Chicago one, it's like that clicks.
Yeah, and for me, the 5th one is a tie. So I'm kind of going to go like 5A, 5B here. Okay. 5A for me is the Lakers. I like the Lakers, the white and blue, going back to the 60s, Elgin Baylor, Jerry West. I think those jerseys look great. I like kind of like the baby bluish on the white. I think that looks awesome. And I'm also a continued fan of the Memphis Grizzlies. They're kind of like my 5B. I like the gold lettering and I like some of the stuff they did with their jerseys. It's not as good as like their retro Vancouver jersey, but I do think that the idea is still cool. And for the rest of the jerseys, man, I just kind of think that they're like, whatever.
Yeah, not great, not awful, but
whatever.
Yeah, they're in there. They're in the mix. One last point on this, man. The Spurs jersey specifically, like there's another article that I read about the Ringer, and this is some really cool. It was a cool comparison because they were basically saying like the Spurs find themselves at a point now where they're rebuilding, they're retooling, they're starting from scratch. They're probably going to have one of their lower, competing seasons in recent history this season with the Fiesta theme. And then the last time they wore it, I think was like either the season that Tim Duncan got there or was the season before they got Tim Duncan, which is another point where they were kind of like at the bottom. They've had a terrible finish and they were starting to kind of like renew that team and retool. So it's like they brought the jersey back at a perfect time because that's where they were last time they wore those jerseys at the time of crossroads and reinventing the wheel for their team and stuff like that. So I thought that was a cool.
Yeah, and then you think about it at the time when they got Tim Duncan. I mean, Tim Duncan was generational. At the time when they got Tim Duncan, they did have David Robinson, but they really didn't have like a certain direction that they were going in. I mean, they had Avery Johnson and Sean Elliott and some of those guys, but Tim Duncan was generational. Right now, look at the Spurs. I agree. The Spurs, I don't really know where they're going, but we know the Spurs, they're a good organization. They'll get back there at some point, and it's kind of cool to see them restarting with this theme, and this is kind of where we're going. I like that.
For sure, man. I couldn't agree more. So I think that brings us to the end of our conversation here, Andrew. I want to thank you again for joining me this evening. Great conversation as always. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope we can continue to converse as we get into the season because, I mean, this trade drama isn't going anywhere. There's going to be a lot more to say about that. So I think we're just getting started on that one, but appreciate you, man.
Yeah, honest to goodness, man, you're one of my favorite people to talk to when it comes to basketball. I've had a wonderful time talking hoops with you, and anytime that you want me on, man, I'd love to jump back with you.
Sounds good. I appreciate that, man.
Right.
So I do want to give our shout out to our sponsors since I neglected to do that at the beginning of our show. But you can see the ticker down at the bottom. We have 3 sponsors here. Teespring.com. We have some of our products that are going live now with some of our awesome clothing options, and our store is really filled up with some great products that you guys should definitely check out and cop if you're really digging the designs. I think they're awesome. RxHemp-USN. You can use that code to get hooked up. They have a special product that helps us out with recovering and rejuvenating from just soreness and things like that. So you can definitely check out RX Hemp. Their product is really good as well. And then lastly, mybookie.ag. You got that code USN100 at the bottom. They're going to match your deposit 100%, and they're going to double that first deposit so you guys can get rolling on betting season because it's about that time. NBA is around the corner, and action is just getting started, guys. So be sure to check that out. And for business casual basketball, you can check out our website at bcbasketball.info. We're getting started over there with some articles, the free agent list, so things are really popping over there. Really excited to see where that goes for this season. And then BC Basketball 2 is where you can find us at Twitter and Instagram if you want to stay up to date with what business casual basketball has to offer for this season. But that's going to be about it for us, guys. Thanks for joining us this evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And be sure to check us out again here next Thursday as we get into more basketball analysis. But we'll be back hitting you with some more basketball conversations here on the podcast real soon. Take care.